Tecmo Bowl is a football arcade game developed by Tecmo, of course, and it was also ported to the NES famously.
It's just amusing to me that such a successful American football game was made by a Japanese company, Tecmo, but it's actually pretty dang good for its time.
If you liked football, you had to play Tecmo Bowl.
A little more of an arcadey style game. I mean, like Madden, this is not.
And then you have 4 plays to choose from, usually 2 passing or 2 running plays. And on defense, if you choose the precise play that the offense chooses, usually the play will be broken up and be squashed or destroyed.
But no peeking, don't look at my controller while I'm trying to select my play.
It was 9 on 9, it was arcade style action, fast, frantic, fun. When you knock into a player, they get thrown up off the screen.
Between, like, you know, when you got a touchdown, you'd have like a little cutscene.
Yeah, a little
and
animation.
There was even a halftime show.
It had the NFL player's license. So the players had different stats.
You had some teams that were severely overpowered compared to some, especially when you talk about the Raiders.
Bo Jackson. Oh my God, that was so uneven.
Lawrence Taylor on the New York Giants was like almost as fast as Bo Jackson. So you can like break up every field goal attempt if you want an extra point.
Yeah, they just had the city names, right?
Yeah, just had the city names, but they had all the players for the correct cities.
Yeah.
This isn't a simulation by any means. This is solely a bash, button mash, fun game of football checkers.
It bridged the gap. Like, even if you didn't like football, you enjoyed playing Tecmo Bowl because it's that much fun.
And if you didn't like video games, but you were a sports guy, you played Tecmo Bowl.
Yeah.
I was never dang good at the game, but even I can appreciate its merits.
The NES port was insanely popular and fondly remembered to this day by almost everybody, except me.
Super Mario Land for the Game Boy. It was a launch title, so if you got a Game Boy, you probably got Super Mario Land to go along with it to play with your Tetris.
What's interesting about Super Mario Land is it's very familiar, yet feels very different. For instance, there is no fireball. You get a ball that bounces at a 45-degree angle, so out in the wide open, it's basically useless.
This was the first game of the series that was produced by Game Boy's creator Gunpei Yokoi and did not involve Shigeru Miyamoto.
I guess the idea might have been, you know, they gave it to Yokoi because he knew more about the hardware and he knew how to use it better. Anyway, the result is that you have something a little bit different than your standard Mario game.
There were some pretty major differences from the other Mario games. For example, there was no Princess Toadstool or Peach, there was Princess Daisy, and there was no Bowser, there was a mysterious spaceman Tatanga. It's a weird game.
The game is only, I believe, 4 worlds long, which is great because it's perfect for a car trip or a quick afternoon game. You can play through and beat it, and, you know, in probably 25 minutes if you know what you're doing.
So not only is there platforming in this game, but there's even a couple shmup stages in there.
Shoot 'em up.
Yeah, shmup. That's what I said.
Whoa, did you see Mario? He's got a sub. He doesn't have to swim anymore. He could use his sub and he could shoot the bad guys.
A little bit outside the box here for Super Mario Land. It was one of those early titles that if you owned a Game Boy, you bought Super Mario Land. And for that, it's a very important early title.
You Force for Nintendo. You Force. You Force. Nothing but you, and the game.
With the U-Force power field, nothing comes between you and the game.
You Force.
Blazing Lazers, known in Japan as Gunhead, was a vertical shmup developed by Hudson Soft and Compile, the company that developed Gun-Knack.
Fantastic music, tons of levels, tons of enemy variety and level variety, and a great power-up system that you see in other shooters by Compile.
You can change and upgrade your weapons to the more powerful stuff, and there's just power-ups floating all over the place, back and forth.
There are some insane weapons in this game. You can get giant metal balls that spin around your ship. making you almost invincible. You can get lasers that by the time you finish upgrading them basically fill the entire screen every time you fire them.
The power-ups are really cool and interesting in this game, but I really like that you had 5 different speeds. You could go slow for precision, fast, which got a little bit reckless, but you could always change your speeds. You didn't have to get power-ups for that.
It was kind of like the beginning of showing that the NEC console was going to be a premier place for shooters.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is a side-scrolling platformer by Konami under the name Ultra, and it was loosely based on the cartoon, and I mean loosely.
You know, it played nothing like the arcade game, which came out the same year.
Yeah.
It was more of an action platformer of sorts.
At this point, they couldn't translate the arcade version over. You know, they couldn't do that.
It was one of the most successful third-party games on the Nintendo.
Some of the characters are familiar from the cartoon. You've got the Turtles, April O'Neil, Shredder, Splinter.
And then you fight wacky, bizarre enemies that you never see in the TV show, like robots.
And sludge monsters.
And flame men. But that's okay. It's actually pretty well done.
On the fly, you can switch between any Ninja Turtle.
And then each has their own weapon, their own different reach with that weapon.
And their own life bar. Each one of these turtles basically acts as a life.
God help you if you lose Donatello, because he's hands down the best turtle. He's got that long range. You're screwed without him.
You can really go almost anywhere right from the get-go.
Yeah.
But you need certain items across certain objects. It's almost like a Zelda element to it.
Yeah, it's almost like Zelda 2 in the way that you have an overworld where you can progress differently based on how you move in the overworld.
A lot of people talk about how frustratingly hard the game is.
I just kept getting stuck in the water level where you have to defuse the bombs. It's so precise, the movements you had to make.
And you had all those stupid electrical pink things all over the place, and you had to defuse all those bombs before time ran out.
Damn that level. It's hard. Damn, it's hard.
This is what you had, and you enjoyed it until you got to that last level with all the conveyor belts and missile heads flying at you, and that's when you wanted to shut the game off. But up to that point, this was a fun game.
This is an era of a lot of experimentation on the NES, and I can definitely appreciate what Konami was trying to do with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on this.
Ninja Turtles are my homeboys. Woo!
Oh my god, Ivan Iron Man Stewart Super Off-Road is fantastic.
Oh my god, we both agree on something at the same time.
It's just one big track, and you have little cars that are going around, and you have to gauge, where to turn left and right. It's not a, from behind view.
The arcade cabinet has 3 wheels. You're always racing against the Iron Man. And it's just fun. There's bumps and the trucks react appropriately.
Once you get used to the controls, it's a lot of fun to play in the arcade with friends. Or enemies.
You could play as either the blue, the red, or the yellow car. But don't even think about trying to drive that white car. That's Ivan's car. Nobody drives Ivan's car but Ivan.
This was one of the first games alongside Super Sprint where you could upgrade your vehicle by getting more points.
On the course, or somehow money bags would be on the course and nitro you could get, and then you can upgrade like your top speed and your shocks and your tires, and that added a nice little element in between the races.
Between levels, you also saw your pit woman who had ginormous tatas.
It was always cool to see that on the screen in my high school's activity center.
Yeah.
The different courses were nice, how they had like figure 8s and you could like bump into, like going across, you could bump into the other guy and get totally thrown off. You'd be totally flipped around.
It's odd that it's a 3-player game because most games of the time were 1, 2, or 4 players. So I mean, just think you don't have enough friends or there's not enough interest. They probably just couldn't fit 4 wheels, I get it.